Ciao amici, I'm Sophie from LingoCast. Please give this video a like if you enjoy it. Make sure to comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. We want to spread the word about language learning and linguistics.
With presuppositions, we usually operate in the language with assuming certain kind of knowledge is known and agreed upon. If we couldn't assume that, our communication would get really cumbersome.
Right.
Because we'd have to establish everything every time we had a conversation with people.
Right.
We have to be able to assume that they already know certain things, or they would agree to those things, or those things are just a given. Now, those things that we already know or agree to, we syntactically place in certain kinds of structures that convey that these are presupposed. And that's what presuppositions are. They're things that we already assume can be taken for granted, or the other person already knows or would agree to. So we structure the things we say with that in mind. If I said to someone, were you surprised that Henry went to Susan's house last Friday? The sentence presupposes that Susan has a house and Henry went there last Friday. That's the old or given information. The new information that I'm inquiring about is whether you are surprised by that. But it takes it as a given that he went there last Friday and he went to her house. She has a house.
Right.
Now, I may have that old or given information from a preceding part of the conversation. Maybe somebody already told me about that Henry went to Susan's house last Friday, and then in a later sentence, I ask if you were surprised by that. Or it could be from other preceding conversations or things that I just, for whatever reason, know that you know. But notice that when I say, were you surprised that, what follows is the presupposition. It's the old information in that case. Now, the interesting thing about presuppositions is we have triggers for them that can be identified. So we don't just have to go on intuition about what may or may not be a presupposition. We have research that shows what those triggers are syntactically, the structures that introduce presuppositions. And it would be too much to go into here, just as two examples. WH questions, those are questions that begin with usually a word like who, what, where, when, why, what kind of, or which, or whatever. It also includes in linguistic description how questions, So those are triggers of presuppositions. Whenever you have one of those, it's almost a guaranteed that you'll have a presupposition. So if I say, who broke the vase? It presupposes someone broke the vase. I'm just asking the new information about who.
Right.
And if I said, what did John make? It presupposes John made something. I'm just asking the new information I'm after is what it was that he made. In a dialogue where somebody says, are you going somewhere? And I say, yes. And then they say, where are you going? Well, they're asking, where am I going? But it's been established in my preceding utterance that I was going somewhere.
Yeah.
So then when they say, where are you going? It presupposes I'm going somewhere. But it's reasonable for them to presuppose that because I've already indicated that I am. But I wouldn't start with the presupposition, where are you going, unless I had something that had already made me think that they're going somewhere.
Right.
Another trigger, I'm just going to give you three of them, but there's more than this. But another trigger are the iteratives. And those are words like again. If I say again, there must have been at least one preceding thing that happened or was the case. When I was a kid, there was a comedian, his name was Rich Little he went by, but he did impersonations of people. And one of his popular impersonations he did was of Richard Nixon, the president who had the Watergate scandal. And he would always adopt, Richard Nixon's mannerisms and his voice. And one of the things he always had Nixon saying was, "I didn't do it, and I promise never to do it again." And as soon as he said that, people laughed because you have that conflict between not having done it, but promising not to do it again.
Yeah, it's kind of like a meme from the Brazilian president. He's like, they says, "I'm not gonna steal the people again."
Yeah.
So, and he actually said that on national television. Like people were like, "Oh, you said again." I mean that you've done it before.
Yeah.
We're supposed that you've done it before.
Interesting.
So, once again, if you understand what the presupposition triggers are, you could go at making stuff where you say, I'm going to use one of these types, I'm going to use one of these types, I'll use this trigger to do another thing, and you could scatter them in amongst conversational conversational implicatures, and if you understand this stuff, it's a little bit like Tinker Toys. You put the stuff together. One other type of syntactic trigger, and again, this is a limited list, are the factive verbs. And they are verbs that presuppose the factual nature of what follows them. Usually it's a clause or at the very least like a participial phrase or something. But if I said, I regret is a factive verb. I regret that Waldo sings off key. It presupposes that Waldo sings off key. The new information is just that I regret it. And so advertisers, there's lots more of these triggers, but I actually many years ago came across an article in which it was in the International Journal of Advertising, and somebody had written an article in which they explained a little bit about presupposition triggers, gave a few examples of the triggers, and then, and this was what I think is a little bit devious, told people who were advertising to put the new information in the presupposition slots, because people assume that the material that occurs in those slots where we normally put presuppositions is agreed upon, established, uncontroversial, old information, so to speak, and we're not as on guard to challenge that information that's found in presuppositions as we would be in the other parts of the sentence. Because usually people put the agreed upon, established, given information in those presupposition slots. So they said, put your new information there, and people may not notice and may just accept what you're saying. So I thought that was kind of a little bit devious to do something like that. But anyway, that's maybe what I would say about presuppositions. So I don't want to be like Forrest Gump, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
No, that was amazing.